Whew, just about caught my breath there. Coming back in, final segment of the day here on Wednesday. The big question: how are American soccer coaches faring? And we'll start off with
Hmm.
how are American coaches faring, Jason.
How are they faring? That's a big question. Oh wait, that's what this is called, right? That's what we're doing. Okay, let's take a look at this list of American coaches currently in Major League Soccer. Just grab this from the old Wikipedia there, Robert. So thank you to Wikipedia for putting
The
this
expert site. The expert site.
in a nice spreadsheet format for us here. Valentino, interim coach, not going to be long for Atlanta United. Is it possible they hire an American coach? Yeah, I guess it's possible. I don't know the odds on it right now. Frank Lopez, he's out. It's Greg Berhalter, so Wikipedia needs to update this list. I guess this is for the season, but we know Greg Berhalter, American coach, with a mixed bag of a reputation. And I think what we can say, because we'll look at this list kind of in terms of prospects, because when we talk about what how American coaches are faring, my mind immediately goes to, will we ever get an American coach at the highest levels of the game, meaning Champions League, possibly even a contender level in the Champions League? Is that possible, or is that too big of a dream? Berhalter now, with the decision to take the job in Chicago, and I don't know if he had any other prospects, is pretty much locked in as an MLS lifer. Like, I feel like we're not going to see Greg Berhalter like win something in Chicago and then traipse off to Europe. I just feel like he's probably locked in Major League Soccer. Pat Noonan, good start to his career in Cincinnati. Does he have a possibility outside this country? We'll come to that. Chris Armas, okay. Troy Lesage, young coach, didn't get DC into the playoffs, unfortunately, this year. Hopefully he gets another crack at it next season. Lots to be determined in his career. Ben Olsen, MLS lifer. Greg Vanney, maybe there was a chance at one point, feels like an MLS lifer situation. Steve Cherundolo. Now, that one's interesting. We'll put a pin in Steve Cherundolo and come back to it. BJ Callahan just starting in Nashville. Caleb Porter, MLS lifer, probably going to get canned by the Revolution after this season. Jim Curtin, maybe some possibilities there, but it's kind of hard to know what they might be. Mastroeni's not going anywhere. In San Jose, where they're looking at coaches, they haven't hired anybody yet. They could be getting Bruce Arena. We know about Bruce Arena. Brian Schmetzer, Seattle lifer, not MLS lifer, Seattle lifer. Brian Schmetzer. Peter Ramiz, clock may be ticking on him in Kansas City anyway. Don't think he's going outside the country and taking a job anywhere. And then John Hackworth in St. Louis for the moment. They're going to go find somebody else. They haven't hired anybody, right? I haven't missed that, right? St. Louis City hasn't hired anybody new. Robert, are you up on your news there?
I am not specifically up on that, but I have been scanning the news, and I haven't seen anything related to St. Louis recently. I think we probably let's ask the chat if they could fact check us on the St. Louis coaching storyline.
Yeah, I don't think they have somebody yet. Of course, Bradley Carnell is South African, so they hired. Their first hire was not American. He had been in MLS, obviously, but not American. They've got in Lutz Pfannenstiel, a German guy running the club with connections in Europe. It's very possible they look towards Europe for their next manager. So we'll see. This isn't everybody, right? There are assistants, there are USL coaches, there are American coaches in Europe right now, right? There are a couple of American coaches still bouncing around various European leagues. Pellegrino Matarazzo comes to mind, right? But I don't think any of them feel like they have the potential to break that glass ceiling that Jesse Marsch tried so hard to break through, only to find himself coaching the Canadian national team.
Oh, man, I was rooting for old Jesse. I really thought that. I mean, he had one signature win where Jesse's name was sung from the rafters at Leeds Stadium, but that goodwill and good results didn't last for very long, did it?
All right, so the only name on this list, and I put a pin in him, is Steve Cherundolo, right? Because Steve Cherundolo has this very strong German background from his time at Hanover, incredibly beloved player, got all his badges in Germany, made the move to America because I think he realized he needed to get started as a top guy, as a manager, as a head coach, not as an assistant anymore. And there was nobody willing to take the risk on him. Whether it's because he's American or just because he was young and untested, I don't know. I mean, Germany has they have a habit of elevating coaches they think are sort of astute and ahead of their time. Julian Nagelsmann is still like 12 years old. Sure. They have that capacity, but they didn't do it for Steve. He goes to Vegas, which was like his soft introduction. Then he takes over for Bob. Obviously, he's won a title. He's done very well at LAFC. I think it's probably fair to say that Steve Cherundolo's goal is to get back to Germany to be a manager in a club in the Bundesliga or perhaps the second Bundesliga, Robert. But right now, it's not there. Right now, it's not happening.
Looking at that list, is there of American coaches in Major League Soccer? Is there a theme of kind of what a lot of those guys have in common? Kind of just speculatively, a lot of those coaches are former players that kind of had their heyday in the 90s sort of a era, right? Like, is there many names on that list that were, would you say are like coaching phenoms that weren't necessarily players that maybe got into the coaching certification programs based on their relationships and experiences within the American game as a player?
I mean, the only so if we bring it back up, I know we took it down, but this is the nature of our live show. Sometimes we got to return our. Oh, sorry, that's my fault. I clicked a button I shouldn't have clicked. Leave that to other people. BJ Callahan is the name that jumps out here as a guy who didn't have a significant playing career that we could point to. I mean, Valentino, a pro, but not a notable one. Clank Plus played in the 90s. Pat Noonan, MLSer, decent career. Armis, same thing. Troy Lesane, not much of a pro career to speak of. Caleb Porter, too, got injured early in his career, never really. But there are some coaches who come through the ranks because they're good coaches or they are recognized as good coaches rather than as guys that, had to have a career to lean on. I mean, actually, the thing about MLS is that there aren't a lot of coaches that you go, oh, he was a great player. Right. He had a great playing career. It's always kind of this middling playing career or injuries limited what they could accomplish. Think Ben Olsen. Right. Ben Olsen had a pretty decent career. Injuries limited him. He wasn't able to catch on in Europe the way he wanted to because of that. So he's an example of the kind of profile that American coaches tend to have. And maybe that's a thing, right? If you're going to break through that ceiling, Robert, if you're going to go and catch on in a big club or even get the opportunity to manage through the ranks of championship to Premier League, lower table, lower end of the Premier League, maybe Bundesliga, maybe Serie A. It's almost impossible to imagine an American ever getting a job in Serie A.
Yeah, who's going to be the Pulisic of American coaching, right?
That's a good question. But if you're going to do that, you kind of have to have a cachet, right? And because we don't have players who have ever ranked among world greats, and maybe Pulisic's on that journey right now, but because we've never had those players, it makes it really hard to imagine them as coaches, our coaches doing that. So maybe that is the chicken has to come before the egg, and the chicken is somebody like Pulisic getting recognized as elite or world class. I know we've debated it on this show whether he's world class. Maybe that's what's necessary. It may not be Pulisic who breaks the glass ceiling, but maybe having players at that level will give everybody the sense, oh, Americans can do anything. They can also be top level coaches. Because I don't know if I have a sense of the timeline on any of this, Robert. How long will you and I still be around the first time an American coaches in a Champions League semifinal, for example, or quarterfinal for that matter?
There's a lot fewer jobs, so there's a lot less opportunity for a manager than a player, obviously. But it seems hard to really put your thumb on it. Like you said, Jesse Marsch, he had a couple moments at Salzburg where he graced the Champions League stage and had some highlights. And then we can't forget, not in Champions League, but Matarazzo at Hoffenheim, the one American really leading the way in Europe. But my final question to you, Jason, is of that list of American coaches plying their trade domestically, which one would you like to have?
Well, let me refine my statements, right, about the playing career matching up with the coaching career, right? Okay. Because it is right now in the chat, we got Nate. Other than Pep, what top coaches have had great careers? I think Diego Simeone had a very good career. I don't know about great. Put him on great. Mourinho obviously didn't famously. I've already mentioned Nagelsmann, who is, I think, as German head coach right now, maybe not where he wants to be exactly, but didn't have much of a playing career. Jurgen Klopp was a middling player, lower levels of German football for part of his career. I get it, right? That most of the coaches that we celebrate aren't guys who were like famous players. But I think what I'm saying is that, again, in that chicken and the egg analogy, American soccer as a whole is still pretty looked down upon worldwide at the top levels of the game. Now, again, players have proven they can do things, and clubs are, as you said, there are more opportunity. You cast your recruitment net, you cast your development net, and you go, okay, well, there's some Americans and they can play. And if we bring them over when they're 14 or 15, we can teach them European ways and they can be great players. And they're willing to do that. Or very good players. But maybe until we elevate the perception of American soccer completely with players achieving things, what Pulisic is doing, but more than just him, 3, 4, 5 guys, maybe until then, those people in charge of picking coaches are going to be less inclined to say an American can do it. It's a tough sell to your supporter base, right? For most of those European clubs, it's tough to go, hey, we're going to give an Americans don't know shit about football, is most people's mindset in Europe.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
Nate's saying MLS would maybe have to become a top league to see American coaches get more chances.
That's possible. But again, how do you see that happening? Because MLS doesn't have access to the competition that most turns managers into stars, and that's the Champions League. Because MLS doesn't have access to that competition, no matter what kind of talent level we have here, no matter how strong the competition seems on paper, people will always say, yes, but that's not the Champions League. They're not winning the Champions League.
The realities of what you're saying aside, as we finish up this topic, of the list of American coaches stateside, which one would you like to see given the opportunity, regardless of the realities of you just laid out of how difficult that would be and to accept over there?
All right, let me see the list again.
Which one of these players that are coaches domestically would you like to see given a shot?
Ay, man, who deserves it? Let's see. I like Pat Noonan. Not sure I'm thinking he's ready for it right now. Let's see. I don't think Vanny's got the level necessary. I guess it is Dolo, only because, again, his pedigree as a player in Germany means he's not going to have to struggle to adapt, and it would probably have to be Germany. That would be, again, sort of the runway, the soft entry for an American coach at a decent level. So Steve Cherundolo, in terms of this list, is really the only guy where you go, yeah, he could not only adapt culturally, but he could succeed in a league because he knows it so well. Everybody else here, it would be a difficult introduction. And after what we witnessed with Jesse Marsh at Leeds and what we witnessed with Bob Bradley at Cardiff City, and those are Swansea. English environments. No, Swansea, you're right. Sorry, I got the wrong Welsh club. Those are English league environments. Obviously, the Welsh team's playing in the English system. So that's a different kind of media scrutiny than I think even an American would get in Germany. I think that language barrier might help a little bit, actually, in a perverse way. That's funny. Yeah. I mean, the relationship between us and the English when it comes to this game is extremely complicated, and it made it tough on Jesse, and it certainly made it tough on Bob. So I think it would have to be something like that. I don't see it. I don't see it right now. Again, except for maybe Steve Cherundolo, one more great year in LA or two more great years in LA. I don't see it here.
We shall see. And that just about does it for today's show. And I got to remind you, hit the subscribe button on the Morning Kick Around YouTube channel. We are, ticking up the numbers, and only you can help us do more. Like and subscribe. Morning Kick Around on YouTube. And then we can be followed on social media, MKickaround on X and the Instagram, or write us an email, morningkickaround@gmail.com.